Welcome back, folks. I'm your host, as always, Lethal RG. Tinto Talk 110 just dropped with a massive wall of text for a massive amount of content. I went through and I went from 8 pages of notes on this one to 3. So you can be assured we're going to speed run this one. Now, first off, getting on to it, great powers may not be limited to 10 slots anymore. They've also been split into 2 tiers, regional and great powers. Likewise, here's their new bonuses. Regionals get half of this. Now, something that might excite a lot of you. Professed trust no longer kills your diplomatic reputation, it kills your prestige, which, honestly, folks, who cares? Prestige sucks. Next off, getting into it, your neighbors will hate you if you grow your economic base too quickly, which, honestly, folks, screw them. Screw them. I'm gonna grow, and if they don't like it, they can try to fight me, and I can win. I'll kill them all. Now, I will say, they have changed how annexation works, thank God. It is now based off your popper ratio instead of being a step function cliff. I'm very excited for this. It's something that needs to happen. Likewise, they did fix one glitch with annexing your subjects. This being, you can no longer annex a subject when they're in the middle of a civil war. This was a glitch formerly that made it where you would lose cores trying to annex your subject. And this has been fixed. It stops the timer from ticking. Now, next off, they did add some automation for diplomacy, specifically some granular automation, which you can see right there. I don't particularly care. I'm not going to use it. Now, this is what I personally care about. Heavy ships have been absolutely tanked. Specifically, they were tanked in shallow waters. This is specifically a change meant to improve the power of galleys. So, what they want from this is hopefully galleys will be able to take on giant ships in, for example, the Mediterranean. Very excited, folks. This is an absolutely huge buff to galley lords. The end of the English is near. I repeat, the end of the English is near. Likewise, in this vein, they did change how land combat works. It is now split into 2 systems, coastal and inland. We don't know the modifiers for either. We do, however, know that rivers will still be a modifier itself. Now, the real important part of this specific section, rebellions have been changed. They finally have added rebel mechanics. I repeat, folks, they have finally added rebel mechanics. For example, you can finally accept their demands for the first time since EU4. So excited, so excited. As you can see, we still have provoke rebels. Very excited about that. We're getting a lot back to EU4, which I'm sure a lot of y'all are happy for. Now, next off, the estate changes. Estates have changed massively. Estates now have their own culture and religion based off your pop stratas. Very excited. One feature of this, however, is that if your ruler is a different religion from your estates, you can use that to repress your estate's power. Now, how do you do this? It's based off your tolerance. So, folks, I'll be honest with you, you're going to want to be cutting that tolerance. You are absolutely going to want to be cutting that tolerance. We are absolutely hate maxing in this house, folks. Absolutely hate maxing. Now, another thing they did add, which I'm very excited for, they have added new emergency interactions with your estates. As you can see, though, a lot of them have specific debuffs. For example, cutting the estate satisfaction. They do, however, note that this will be reduced by half if you are in a defensive war. They do have 5-year cooldowns, though. One more thing on this specific note. Abdication has been tanked, dog. Abdication now costs double its former legitimacy, though half of its prestige. And that is gonna hurt, folks. You do not want to be abdicating in EU5 1.3. Now, next off, This is something I am genuinely sad about, folks. Research speed is now based off the control of your provinces. So you're going to want to be spamming a lot of vassals, folks. I hate to tell you this, but you do not want to be controlling provinces. You absolutely do not want to control provinces. Now, the final two things in this section. They've added 20 reforms. We'll find out about two of them here. One is of noble bearing. Very excited about that. The second one is centralized banking. We'll talk more about that later. The final important part of this section is that tradition and influence, cultural tradition and influence, now have impacts on estate satisfaction and diplomatic reputation respectfully. Now, the next thing is an economy. Some of y'all aren't going to want to hear this. They have brought down Vic 3-like demand. I'm sure not all of you know what that means, but that means there's going to be a lot of economic spirals, at least if it's anything like Vic 3. We don't know fully yet. We do know certain things, though, for example. Price will dictate demand. Now, for example, if something has doubled its price, it'll have 40% less demand. That's going to be interesting regardless. They did, however, tank production. It's 20% base now, 25% for Tier 2, 30% for Tier 3, 35% for Tier 4. It hurts. It really does. It really does. This is meant to make production efficiency more important. Another thing they did, and this is another reason why you're going to want to be doing vassals, and another reason why you're going to be wanting to do multiple markets. Market access now directly impacts the production of these buildings. The closer they are to the market and the more they produce. So you're going to want to be close as to your market center as physically possible and basically own nothing else. Which, I'll tell you folks, that sucks. Now, you may have been wondering about that centralized banking from earlier. And one thing that lets you do is it lets you give out government bonds. They're like loans, but honestly, they're kind of worse. Specifically, they don't impact inflation, but they have a scaling, increasing rate of cost. Now, I do think that's interesting because it does let you give out more loans, and it seems like this is going to be a way to let every country give out loans, which that'll be cool. Now, they do add something that I have mixed feelings on. They do specifically add what can only be called credit scores. This is the new credit worthiness system. Basically, what it means is the more credit worthy you are, the lower interest rate you'll have. So they're adding interest tiers, and the lower credit worthy you are, the harder it is for you to take loans. That's cool in itself. Still, though, Jesus Christ, you're going to be wanting to pay off your credit cards, folks. That's all I'm saying. They do say, however, they're adding 10 new banks. Unique banks. I think pretty much everyone will be able to take the centralized banking reform to do their own bank, but specifically they're adding banks such as the Bank of England. That's interesting regardless. The next thing, they do add some permanent production bonuses to certain regions based off their historical materials. That's interesting. I'm very interested in that. Next off, they do say that burger trade now starts at 600 range, and it increases with every passing age. That's going to be huge. Next up, this is production buildings and automation. They've added auto expand to your buildings, if you turn it on, of course. This will be interesting. Apparently, it's been very requested. I still personally won't use it, but we'll see how it goes. Next up, cabinets can be automated. I'm interested in this. You can automate your cabinets now specifically to maximize based off their traits. Maximize their most efficient action based off their traits. This could be good, but with how iffy some traits are, we'll see how this goes. Next up, they add some new town rights. Here's all of them. They're not very notable in my opinion. I think Granary Town's kind of crap because it reduces your migration speed. We'll see how it goes. Now, this is something I think is hilarious. The Reformation is now considered a plague. So, Catholic mogging over here. Basically, they weren't satisfied with how the Reformation was functioning. It was just kind of randomly adding buildings everywhere, which I get. So now the Reformation officially uses the plague mechanics for spreading. So in code, it's technically a plague. Let's be real. We all know it's not a plague. It's just the Reformation. But that's interesting regardless. Finally, they've added a massive expansion of Italian and Balkan content on top of the 1.2 content update, which will add a ton of new situations, new disasters, 100 new events, and 180 new advances. That's going to be huge if you play in Italy and the Balkans. I don't personally play in Italy or the Balkans, but I might try it after this. We'll see. I'm still gale peeling over here personally. Now, the final thing that's important in this dev diary is they've expanded bureaucracy. They've expanded some China-specific ones with the Celestial Authority mechanic. Likewise, they've added some specific to Europe. That's going to be pretty cool. Thanks for watching, folks, if indeed you still are. Make sure to speedrun that subscribe button and destroy the creditworthiness of that like button. Thank you.